My name is Connor, and you can find a lot of my writings under the name Connor O'Brien Warren. I am a Hellenist. Specifically, I'm a Hellenic revivalist, which is a subset of Hellenic Polytheism. So, what is Hellenic Polytheism? It comes from two words. First, it comes from the word Hellas, which is what the Greeks called their land. So Greece is actually you can tell who's conquered by the Romans by if they call it Greece or Hellas. So even though the Greeks were conquered by the Romans, they kept their native name. And it also comes from the word polytheism, which has two roots, which is poly, which means many, and theos, which means gods. So many gods. So a Hellenic polytheist is a person who worships many of the Greek gods, or Hellenic gods, which are also called the theoi. So that's the term which you will find Hellenic polytheists calling their gods. We are very varied. So everything I'm going to tell you today has an exception to the rule, and there are people who will disagree or deviate from what I'm saying. However, what I'm presenting is what I have seen to be the most common elements and aspects. First things first, always start with the gods. So our major deities are Zeus, Hera, Athena, Hermes, Aphrodite, Ares, Demeter, Poseidon, Hephaestus, Hestia, Apollo, Artemis, Dionysus, and Pan. These deities belong to a grouping called Olympian, which means heavenly, and that's what the bulk of Hellenic polytheist worship is directed towards, is those deities. And I will, if we have time at the end, I will gladly answer questions over their nature, attributes, what they do, how they're worshipped. But that can take a while, so for brevity's sake, we're going to go forward from there. As I said before, for belief and practice, we have no unified set of beliefs. We are not an orthodox religion. So the individual's thoughts on the nature of the gods, on the nature of worship, on the purpose of worship, is going to be very different depending upon what philosophical school they subscribe to, what their nation, what nationality they were born into, if they have initiations into mystery traditions, if they're also practicing other religions in addition to Hellenic polytheism, which is entirely compatible with Hellenic polytheism. You can be a Hellenic polytheist and practice Kemetism or Buddhism or even Hinduism. So, and that is due to the non-orthodox nature of the religion. We also don't have a unified set of practices. Practices vary by region, nationality, and occasionally by belief system. However, there are elements that are common to basically all practices. These elements are purification, offerings, hymns, and prayers. Purification can be achieved by a variety of methods, which I will briefly discuss later. Our ethics and virtues are complicated. Again, this goes back to the fact that we are not an orthodox religion, and we have no core book which we are drawing from. So, what does a Hellenic polytheist value? The values of a person are going to be heavily influenced by if they're a devotee of a god, such as a devotee of Demeter, the goddess of agriculture, the earth, domestic animals, will be very interested in making sure these animals are treated properly, that the earth is used responsibly, and that sustainable practices are done. Whereas a devotee of Artemis may be very concerned with the welfare of children and be a child's rights activist as an expression of their religious devotion. So then we come to some shared ethics that we tend to have. A big one is honoring your parents and your ancestors. That doesn't mean you have to like them. That doesn't mean you have to love them. It means that you have to render them the honor they deserve in life and in death as a result of them giving life to you and giving you a home, hopefully. We also heavily emphasize harmony in the home, especially if the person is married and has children. It is very important to seek a harmonious home and to raise your children in an environment with as little strife as possible. We then have our personal ethics, which is lascivia, which is piety, rendering unto the gods what is theirs and following purificatory protocols. We have xenia, which is hospitality, being a good host and being a good guest, providing your guests with what they need and not overstaying your welcome at a host's house. We have arete, being the best that you can of what you are. So if you're a doctor, be the best doctor that you can be. If you're a teacher, be the best teacher you can be. It's a very personal thing, and there's no universal definition for it in our system. And then kleos, which translates to glory, and that is making a good name for yourself. Basically, don't do stuff like deface public buildings and bring shame to your family and to your house. We then have a few ethics that are governed by the divine. That is, honoring your oaths. If you make an oath by the gods, you better honor it. Making the necessary offerings and sacrifices, and maintaining ritual purity before you worship. Ritual purity can be achieved by a variety of means. There is a flame purification, there is water purifications, and there are even some blood purifications that are attested to in the ancient source material. However, I do not know if there are any Hellenic polytheists this day that practice blood purification. Murder is a big no-no. If you murder someone, obviously, if you murder someone and it is not in the act of war, you are ritually impure. Even if it's, say, you get into a car accident and kill the other person. Completely by accident, but you're still ritually impure because you have taken a life, which is not permitted and is abhorrent in the eyes of the gods. This requires you to undergo specific purifications, and it's a very complicated, messy thing, so we're very big on not murdering each other. And there are also a lot of ethical variations. I'm going to, since I sped through that a little quick, probably because I'm a little nervous, I don't do this every day, I want to briefly take a couple of questions if anybody has any. You.
About the accidentally murdering someone.
Yes.
And being, you said
Ritually impure.
Ritually.
Yes.
I was watching the, what is it? There's a Werner Herzog documentary about people who text for driving and kill people. Like not trying to kill people. And there was this man who like he texted that his wife that he loved her and he killed like an Amish family. And the like it's just like he was since they're Amish, you know, like the father of the family, it was just his wife and two boys. And he like sent him a letter saying that, you know, we love you, we're thinking of you, we forgive you, and he keeps sending those letters and just like slays them every time. Oh, okay. So like, is there some sort of like forgiveness or something that could restore your purity?
No. It is. The family can forgive you, which can relieve you of some of the social obligations you have to make things right with that family. However, the act of murder and the act of taking another life in those circumstances is the sphere of the gods, and you have to make things right with the gods in order to have your purity restored. Basically, we have a concept called miasma, and that is the word we use for ritual impurity. And some miasma is easy to remove, such as the miasma from sex, or cutting your hand open and getting a little bit of blood on you. Some miasma is harder to remove, such as killing someone. And like I said, there are exceptions. That exception being self-defense and war. So, answer your question.
You said it wasn't a Orthodox religion, so there's no like set writings you guys go by. So my question, I guess, would be: is it more so like passed down through family and tradition, kind of like folklore? Not like I hate to describe it like that, but the same sense as how it's folklore is passed down. Is it just like word of mouth, like you teach it to your kid, you teach it to their kids? Is that kind of the sense that you guys like that the religion goes on since you don't have like a set book or anything?
Yes, there's actually a phrase from some Shinto practitioners: the religion is caught, not taught. Converts have the very heavy and arduous task of going through source material, going through archaeological records, and going through our stories and seeing what ritual elements and festival elements are in there and extracting those and building a viable practice with it. People who are born into the religion, which it is new, the earliest estimate we have is that it really took off, started getting its going in the 70s, and it really took off in the 90s. So it is a new religion. So we don't have a lot of children who are born into it, but those who are born into it just observe what their parents are doing and then do the same. And the theological kind of explanations and the explanations of rites and stuff may be explained by the parent, or the parent may say, this is just what we do, and they may ask somebody who's more knowledgeable someday.
Okay. And that was leading on to my second question. How does your religion treat converts?
Well, we're a religion of almost entirely converts, so pretty well.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it is a very big undertaking to convert to this religion. A lot of time, a lot of study. You have to read thousands of pages worth of material, and even after that, you may be constantly reviving your practice for the first 10 years where you're actively practicing. So I can take one more question. I saw Callie over here, and then we have to move on.
So you said that it started taking off in the 70s and got really popular in the 90s, and I was wondering if there was like a specific individual who like kind of like revived it, you know, like Gardner and Wicca.
That is something that I don't know. From all that I've seen and all that I've studied, there have been people who have stepped up as community leaders at certain times, but as to who really started thinking about it, we don't know. The truth of the matter is that without Gardner and without the advent of heathenry, which is Germanic reconstructive religion, we probably would not be in the place that we are, and we probably would not have the numbers that we did, that we currently do have. So it's something that we have no founder, but we have a lot of people to be grateful for our development. I'm going to move on to components of worship. Oh, yes.
Sorry. We have one more guest scholar, professor in our class. So can we have her announcement for probably 5-10 minutes, and then we continue the meeting?
Yes, of course.
Sorry, so sorry.
I'm really sorry. Thanks, Dr. Dane. I'll just take 5 minutes of your time. I'm Dr. Nunez Danes from Anthropology, also known as Profe. I see maybe some familiar faces over here, so some of you may know me. I just want to let you know about a class that I'm teaching this coming spring. It is, let me make sure I get the course number right. It is Anthropology 4701, Section 27, Community Engagement Through Action Research. And the class is designed specifically for us, along with an organization, a nonprofit organization here in Denton called Opening Doors International Services, to conduct action research. And what that means is that we will be doing research for and with Opening Doors International Services next semester. The focus of our work is going to be on human trafficking, and specifically, we're going to be collecting data with them to assist them in developing a human trafficking educational campaign. They just opened an office in Louisville, and so we're gonna be going through the I-35 corridor, limited to Louisville, which is where the majority of human trafficking occurs in the United States. And we're gonna be interviewing business owners about what they know about human trafficking and just posting flyers of information if they allow us to do so to kind of inform the general public about human trafficking. So if you are interested in the class, I'm going to pass a flyer that has all of the registration information as well as a description. You do need permission from me to enroll in the class because it requires that you're not only available for class time, we're going to meet once a week on Wednesdays from 2 to 4:50, but it also requires that you're available outside of class time to volunteer at Otis and also to do the data collection with them. So email me if you have any questions, and I will be able to also send you information on how to register. Thank you, Dr. Jane. I won't answer questions now because I know you have someone waiting to take the podium again. Thanks so much and have a nice Thanksgiving break.
Now I want to get into our components of worship. The flame is important. It represents Hestia, who is the goddess of the hearth. She is the one who bestows harmony upon the home, and she is also present at every rite. We give to her first, and we give to her last. So the flame is a very important component of about 90% of rituals, and especially those that are conducted in the home for the benefit of the home. Purification is extremely important. If you are ritually impure, it impedes your communication with the gods. It can prevent your prayers from reaching the gods, and it can provide mental and emotional distractions for you that will not permit you to worship correctly. There are instances where miasma, or ritual impurity, may not be a problem. However, these are exceptions to the rule and not the rule itself. So a pious Hellenist will purify themselves by one of any number of methods before they begin ritual and worship. Hymns and offerings are very important. Hymns are just, they can be actual hymns, they can be songs to the gods, accompanied by music and dance, or they can be as simple as a haiku that you wrote for the gods. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it is reverent, and as long as it is directed towards the gods in worship. Communal worship is something that is infrequent due to our scattered population. We have no exact numbers on how many Hellenists there are in the States, so I'm not even going to make a guess. I'm just going to say that we do have a very scattered population, but we are present in all 50 states. They may be held in a rite can be held in a communal style with only one Hellenist present. I have done that myself because they are rites on behalf of the community. I hold them outside with a fire, and libations are poured on behalf of my community, and on behalf of my neighborhood, my state, and my city. We have a lot of holidays. I think the number is somewhere around 65, and I don't believe that is including those that recur every month. We have a lot, and there is no injunction to celebrate them all, thankfully, because it is hard to celebrate 65 holidays a year by yourself. The view on a holiday and a festival celebration is that, one, it honors the gods and brings their blessings onto your community. It helps the community draw closer to the gods, and it also acts as a sort of in on the road of life. Life can be very tough. It can be very challenging and trying for everybody in existence that gets to be of the age where they're cognizant of life, and it provides a brief reprieve, and it allows us to once again experience the benevolence of the gods. Household worship is very important. It is, in my opinion, it's more important than communal worship because the house is the smallest true unit for Hellenism. We have 3 major holidays: the Diethnen, which is the end of the month. Our months are lunar, so it's the dark of the moon. This holiday honors the goddess Hecate. She protects the house, she guards the house, and it is supposed to actually purification for the house and those who live within the house. We have the Numinia, which translates to new moon, and for us, the new moon is not the same as an American new moon. It's whenever we can sight the first sliver of the moon. It is largely dedicated to Selene, the goddess of the moon, and the gods who protect the house, which there's a laundry list of gods who protect the house because you have protection for your front porch because that's where people enter, back gate, your backyard, your pantry, gods who protect the house from disease, who protect the house from burglars. It goes on and on. Needless to say, the Numinia can last for a while. And the Agathos Daemon celebration is the day after the Numinia, and this celebration honors it literally translates to good spirit. It is one of the protectors of the house, often represented in the form of a snake, and it is kind of the first and last defense of the family. It's tied to the family, and watches over them. Some people perceive it as an ancestral spirit, and others perceive it as an aspect of Zeus. Now, for individual worship. It is often done at personal shrines. There may be petitions or prayers, or may be done to draw closer to the gods. And in drawing closer to the gods, it would make you behave more piously, more honorably, and it would make you pursue what greatness means for you. And I actually have some pictures to show you of some shrines and altars. The worship, individual worship, is definitely the most varied and takes many forms. Okay. So this is a shrine to Aphrodite and Ares. We can see the flame, incense being burnt, and some devotional offerings along with a galma, which are the statues. This is actually one of my shrines. It is to Hermes and Apollo with various votive offerings. This is a gateway herm of one of my friends. You will notice that it mainly consists of stones to pour libations over and some offerings, but it does not contain a galma. So this is referred to as aniconic worship, which means worship without an icon, which is actually can be fairly common for some people. This is a celebration altar from Democratia. That is a celebration of the democratic process, and people will often pray that the leaders who are elected and decisions that are made are for the best interest of the community. This is a Pompeia altar, very minimalistic, done outside, and I have not memorized what all the symbols mean, so yeah, I can't explain that one all the way. This is another one of my shrines. It's to Athena. Various medals that I won for academic and scholastic processes I dedicated to her. A pillow, since she is a goddess who oversees sewing and weaving, I made and dedicated to her, and some elements that are necessary for worship. That is a libation an altar for libation to Hephaestus. You'll notice it's very minimalistic, another example of aniconic worship. And we have a libation bowl there for his offerings. So that is some examples of individual worship and altars. I want to briefly pause for questions, as I'm sure we have some.
When I was traveling through Greece at the Temple of Poseidon, I met some worshippers of Ares, and I asked them if they actually do believe in the old legend, the gods were born from the Titans, and that Ares, covers his bed with the skins of people he's killed, and that, at the Temple of Poseidon, that, I don't know if it was Poseidon or actually I think it was Athena, that Medusa was turned into a monster. And they said no, they don't actually believe those things. It's sort of like they're appropriating these ancient symbols just to more philosophically access mystical experience. And I'm just wondering if that's a common opinion. Do you believe in these ancient legends, or how do you approach this? Is it more of a religious thing or a philosophical thing?
Okay, it is a religious thing. However, within Hellenism, there is a prevalent view that one not need believe the myths literally happened for them to be true. The stories and myths are important to us, but not as literal history. And actually, going back to the ancient source material, you will see this view reflected among many philosophers and many members of the kind of aristocratic class who could afford to spend leisure time on education. Basically, the myths are seen as explanatory devices to help us understand aspects of deity. So, a base person, and in our view, a base person will read the myth on a base level. A person who seeks to understand deeper will read the myth on a deeper level. And so, the myths can be used as aids to mysticism and spiritual experiences and knowing the gods, but people who believe in the myths in a literal sense are few and far in between, and within contemporary American Hellenism, they are frequently they're ridiculed. I mean, there's no other way for me to really put it. If someone literally believes that Zeus came down and had sex with Leda as a swan, they get made fun of because we feel like you're missing the point of the myth. So,
Do you take the gods literally then?
yes.
Do you believe that the gods actually exist?
I believe that the gods exist as independent entities. Others believe that the gods exist as emanations of the one, and others, will have different stances and viewpoints. The viewpoint that the gods exist as independent, active entities is the prevalent viewpoint within contemporary American Hellenic Polytheism. I saw your hand raised?
Yeah, but
Okay. So you actually segued and helped me explain one of the points that I was about to make, that the religion is not based on myths. Even our rituals are not based on myths. Rituals are actually often done to commemorate an event that actually happened. There is an event, a celebration of Artemis Agoritea, and it is done to commemorate the celebration of the Athenians defeating the Persians. That was in ancient times. Now, there's some conflicted feelings on whether we should celebrate the event because we're not Athenians, and most of us don't have a special hurrah for the Persians being defeated. So new celebrations are often instituted, especially at the behest of diviners, oracles, seers, and exegeti. So, as I said before, myths are important, but they are usually not the basis for informing ethics or practice. They're actually, oftentimes, myths are examples of what not to do. If you're too arrogant, well, Athena's going to turn you into a spider. If you're like Achilles raged and it cost him his life, because he would not help his fellows, and many lives were lost, because he was so obsessed with his own glory. Now, for something that may be a bit harder to understand, maybe not, we do not worship idols. I personally don't have anything wrong against idolatry, but the term idolater is not accurate for Hellenic Polytheists, because the idol is not the god. The agama is not the god. The agama points to the god. And the agama may act as a conduit for the god's power, but it is not the god. You can destroy the agama, but you do not destroy the god. And as I demonstrated with the shrines and altars, agama are not necessary. And there are actually some people who think that agama may be distractions for some people. So the term idolatry is one that we in a Christian environment like to apply to polytheistic persons, but oftentimes it is not accurate, since we are not serving the idol, we are serving the God, who is represented by the idol. And now we have the rest of our time for questions.
All right. So I wanted to know how connected spiritually you are to the gods, because in the Red Sea area, there's a secret polytheistic cult of Poseidon, Asteria, Mars, these gods. And actually, things that happen are remarkable. You see people, perform. It happened in the